click on the subscribe button, and press the bell icon, to never miss any updates.
Welcome to Face to Faith. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. T.K. Nakagaki, and I'm the president of the Heiwa, Peace and Reconciliation Foundation of New York, and former president of the Buddhist Council of New York. And I'm been involving a lot of interfaith activities here and there, especially in New York City. And so this is a program for learning maybe about the interface itself, and also possibly learning yourself too, But my program today, since I don't have a guest today, meaning I'm going to give talk myself. So let me start with the regular way, which means we will start with a little short meditation so that we have a moment of silence so you can calm down yourself, as I always said, but you're running all the time in New York City, so it's need to have a time to relax a little bit and just sit comfortably and then enjoy this show. Okay, so I'll ring the 3 bells, so maybe you can sit with your back straight and relax yourself and follow your breath. And just breathe in and out slowly and deeply using your lower stomach. And you can close your eyes now. Breathe in and breathe out. Last one, breathe in, breathe out. Okay, so I hope you're ready now. And today I'm basically talking about interfaith itself, meaning like sometimes we wanted to know what it really meaning of the interface, although we use nowadays interface for many parts. Before, of course, we do have different terms like related to the religious dialogue, more like. So in a way, this is an inter-religious dialogue, so you can say, or inter-revisions. And so the word interfaith itself somehow become a little more dominant right now. But when we start thinking of the meaning of interfaith, then probably definition is always important. Probably you can learn so what you really accomplish, because this is the title. Title is always something that you can tell this is what the main purpose of this particular activities and things. So interfaith, so there are 2 words together. Inter as interaction, so you are interacting with myself and then others, or yourself and the others. So in order to have an inter something, we need at least not just one person or one thing, but you need to have more than 2. So that's the interact. So the words interfaith, so you always assume there will be somebody you're associating with or connected with. And so otherwise there's the words intrafaith, meaning INTRA, and that's inside, right? And so when we have interfaith, so which means we normally talking about one revision versus other revisions. But maybe when you say intrafaith, maybe you can talk among themselves. So maybe if it's a Muslim, or Islamic tradition, then among the Islamic tradition, you're talking about each other, then the intra. But once you start talking with the other group, like Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, then you are starting the interfaith. So, so basically, what I'm telling here is interfaith is not just yourself. You need something. You need somebody else. And that's the first important part of reacting, or how you, you know, how you contact with other people. And then so I've been talking about that many ways. And then we have a guest, and then you realize when we have a guest, that's more like an interfaith happening. So I'm talking myself now, then it may not be as interfaith as it could be. So when we have a guest, that's interconnectedness and interconversational. And then I believe you find the words inter, like interculture. So different culture interact. So that's inter too. So anything encountering the other unusual or maybe strange for you, or something that you meet. So that's the part of the inter faith. So in a way, well, I'm Buddhist, and as many of you maybe not necessarily Buddhism, especially in this country, United States, Buddhism is a very minority group. So therefore, it's, well, I believe many are Bangladesh people, so also Buddhist could be very small. And so in a way, when you're watching me, maybe in a way this is a little interaction or interconnectedness type of environment that I was creating, you and myself. So I hope you sort of get the feeling of, we need a conversation, we need a dialogue, we need simple talk each other. So that's the part of the inter. And then the faith that we're talking about. So faith is something coming from the, your belief. And so many faiths, religion has a lot of faith traditions, so-called. However, of course, this terms faith, it could be the problematic too. Some religion, so-called the religious tradition, which does not consider the faith as important as the Christianity or Judaism or Islam, because especially like the faith sort of relate to the one God. Yeah. So monolism, pluralism versus monolistic monolism, then that's the one God religion. So that's you face to one person, one God. So that's the connection with it. So the word faith or interfaith, faith itself has a little bit problematic maybe in a way, because dealing with Judeo-Christian faith type of thing. So there are in this world, or many before the probably one God religions, there are many gods. And Greek is also, the India or, other parts of even Japan and where I grew up is a many gods, meaning like there's a gods who are controlling the sky, which is like rains and all those things. And there's another gods who control earthquakes and all those tsunami and so waters and all those things. And then there's a mountain gods too. So there are many gods that way. So it's a different system. And so in a way, many different gods are there. And so that's why it's not like you trust one faith. You have one faith for one God, but rather it could be many faith to many gods too. So anyhow, so that's why sometimes the words instead of interfaith, some people still prefer inter-religious dialogue or inter-religions, maybe, or inter. Of course, this is not just a culture, so focusing on the religious part. Then why the interfaith is, I believe, among the religious tradition, you start having a conflict. And so, in order to make a conflict, stop. I mean, in order to stop the conflict, then the interfaith dialogue start. Because before, oh, this is the way, no other way. One the religion says this is the only way, no other ways. So many the vanguard religion tend to have that way of this is it, nothing else. And so, which means you don't need to know anything else. And then, so among those faith group, like those vanguard centered, they start realize that they should start talking each other. So that's how the interfaith, I believe, recently developed. And so the word's faith itself is because of the interfaith activity itself, the one that we're talking about, starting from the Judeo-Christian dialogue. So when we say interfaith before, is only Christian and Jewish. Those two are only things. And then later they have Islamic tradition joining. So interfaith could be, Buddhist. Christian, Jews, and Muslim. And so that's a Judeo-Christian interfaith. And since I'm Buddhist, so the more recent one is including the Eastern tradition, like Hinduism and Buddhism, Jainism, and then others too. Native Americans and all different regional religions too. Then the word faith itself, does it really include all of those ideas? I don't know. Probably not. But at least words interface becomes sort of like a steady now. Thinking of the history of it, that might be okay. But in the future, it may change the words too. Because the title itself, interfaith, so as if you're dealing with a faith tradition, which is a Judeo-Christian tradition, one God tradition. But now, if you're really thinking of the world itself, there are many, many gods and many, many different way of looking at the world too. So if you try to include all those things, then the interface, the words itself, may have some problem. So today, so I want you to sort of like think what it means by interfaith. And are we really ready for interfaith dialogue? Meaning, in order to have a dialogue, then you have an openness of our mind, and so we can listen other people, and then we can even respect, or we can include that in your parts of the traditions or your thinking, at least. So interface is a really challenge, right? But then at the same time, it developed, and our neighbor changes. Before, if, like in my country, I'm from Japan, then my neighbor is a Buddhism or Shintoism, like those. That's all. There's no much of the Christianity, not much of Muslim, not much of Native Americans, or those or Jainism, Hinduism is very, very less. So it's but then the dynamics nowadays is because of the people travel, people start living in other countries. So we do have people meeting and different religious people meeting, and so then once we meet, then how you interact become very important, and culturally of course, but also religiously too. So when we use the words interfaith, then so it's faith traditions, well, even kind of including non-faith. So some of the atheists could be, that's one of the belief, to not to believe the God is a one way too. So are we ready? Are we in a way to be able to accept all those things, or do we not? So interfaith is the different way of looking at our humanity. Because if you really start from the human history, there are many different culture, different religions, but then some culture raise and some culture disappear, and some religion came and then some religion disappears. And so there is a system of like a living, entity. Like, so sometimes one religion become very big, and sometimes one religion become very small. And then some country used to be some other religion, but then it changes this way and that way. And so how you interact each other, and probably also for many God's religions, so-called, has been interface for many years, I believe. Because, for instance, I'm from Japan, right? Then there are Shintoism, which was native religion of Japan, so which has respect all the different gods in a universe and in a space, like one in the earth, one on the so-called ground or mountains, in the oceans, and then the skies and so forth. So each one has their different gods. So in a way, each one has their own role to do, create the harmony of the world. And so that's why we respect different gods and so forth. So when the Buddhism came, that's also Buddhism is actually from India, and then came to China, and then went to Japan about 1600 years ago. So it's a long time ago. But yet, when the Buddhism came, so many of the Japanese people probably see as different gods. Maybe the gods from the other country, and so that's the like a way that coexist too. And sometimes even in Japan, the interesting thing is, of course, I'm going to make it shorter. But then once you go to Japan, sometimes you go to the Shinto place and you see the Buddhist quality there. And if you go to the Buddhist temple, you also see the Shinto shrine inside of the Buddhist temples. And so it's like coexistence means, that has been the history for Japan for many years. And then Shinto and Buddhism have almost, of course, there are some conflicts, but not like a conflicts killing so many people like the Western world. It's never happened. And so because the nature itself is you respect the other gods, basically, because many gods. So each god is very important. So that's why we respect. And but it seems like so that's also the reason to be able to live peacefully, and so respecting each other somehow, and then even they become part of their own culture. And interesting part in even like Japan, I guess, is like, this is end of the year right now that I'm recording this one. And December in Japan is very interesting in terms of festivity. Of course, the Christianity is very small, but yet the Japanese people do the little Christian, Christmas is a big event in Christmas time. December 24, especially. Christmas Eve is actually very important in Japan. And then so people eat cakes and, like those. And then when it comes to the end of the year, the December 31st, New Year's Eve, then everybody go to the temple, Buddhist temple, and clean their, I guess, reflect on the 1 year. And then next day in January 1st, everybody goes to the Shinto shrine. And so in a way, Buddhist and Shinto's face, back to back. And then many times the sad occasion go to the Buddhist, happy occasion go to the Shintoism, and so forth. So it is culturally also mixed with the two religion together. So kind of instead of war or violence, or there's no good, but rather it's keeping the harmony together is much more relevant. And then that's more like a norm. So respecting others' norm instead of something different or something new. So in a way, inter-religions or interfaith activity has been there in many countries who has many gods anyway. So anyway, I hope you have a little thinking today about the word's interface, and so sometimes it will be great to think of what it really means and what we are focusing on. And thank you very much for joining today. And I'll finish with the meditation for thinking of the happiness to yourself for the first spell, and then extend loving kindness and compassion to others to the second bell, and then the thinking of the peace to all of the world, the third bell. Yeah, peace to you, and thank you very much for joining today.
ITV, Call of Peace, Save Humanity.